Starmer promises British forces on Ukrainian soil after peace deal. Putin heads to India. Russia's biggest bank sees big payouts. Kremlin counts on Indian workforce to save Russian economy. Here's the latest, so you will be in focus. Subscribe and stay tuned. London is ready to deploy its troops to Ukraine after peace agreements are signed and a ceasefire is in place, reports The Guardian, citing a statement from the UK Prime Minister's spokesperson. Planning for the military deployment is ongoing, confirmed Prime Minister Keir Starmer during talks with the President of Ukraine. According to Kyiv's partners, a foreign contingent is expected to become a key part of Ukraine's security guarantees. More details will be reported by Larissa Petruk.
France, as well as the United Kingdom, has confirmed its readiness to deploy its troops in Ukraine after peace agreements are signed. This was stated by Emmanuel Macron, reports Le Figaro. The French president noted that implementation of the plans can be discussed only after peace is signed. That is, I quote, no longer in a military context. But the main deterrent force in the future will be Ukraine's defense forces, the head of state emphasized. German citizens also support deploying their contingent in Ukraine after the war ends. 56% of poll participants spoke in favor of the country's participation in the European peacekeeping mission, conducted by the Berlin Pulse.
59% of respondents spoke in favor of further arms supplies to Ukraine, defending itself against Russian aggression. Meanwhile, only 21% of those polled indicated that they believe Putin is fundamentally interested in achieving peace in Ukraine through negotiations. Against this background, judging by the poll results, anxiety among Germans regarding their own security is growing. Thus, 47% of survey participants rated the military threat from Moscow as very high. This is much more than last year, from a publication by Deutsche Welle.
There is doubt in the U.S. Senate about Putin's genuine desire for peace. Trump's ally, Republican Lindsey Graham, is convinced that there will be no peace until the Kremlin dictator feels like the master of the situation.
He will insist on capitulation, not peace. In that regard, America and the rest of the world have many cards that have yet to be played against Putin's Russia. I hope we can find an honorable and just peace soon. But if Putin continues to reject ceasefires, compromise peace proposals, and insist on capitulation, then it is time for the United States and rest of the world to start playing their cards differently. Lindsey Graham, U.S. Senator, on X.
Europe also does not believe in the Kremlin's intention to end the war against Ukraine and is preparing to repel likely attacks from the aggressor. The Swedish armed forces warn that Moscow could escalate in the next 5 years and attack NATO countries. In this regard, Stockholm is considering purchasing cruise and ballistic missiles with a range of up to 2,000 kilometers. Shells of this modification could, if necessary, strike the Federation's capital.
Such missiles could be used if Russia attacks NATO and Article 5 on collective defense is activated. Then strikes on Russian command centers, surveillance systems, and critical infrastructure should hinder further Russian army advances. The report proposes directing part of the defense budget to modernize and strengthen military infrastructure. This is necessary so that Sweden can fully perform the role of NATO's rear base, from a publication by the Moscow Times.
The most important element of any future ceasefire or peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine should be guarantees that Moscow will not attack Kyiv in the future, stated NATO Secretary General. The ultimate goal should be a sovereign Ukraine that Russia will never try to attack again, emphasized Mark Rutte. Any future peace solution must guarantee that Russia cannot attack Ukraine again. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, is convinced. Additionally, she assured that even after a ceasefire, Russia cannot rejoin the Group of Eight, reported by Larissa Petruk, UATV News.
The largest bank in Russia says that Putin's visit to India in December will help strengthen business ties. First, it concerns payments that Russian bankers are counting on. Second is about attracting labor migrants. The Kremlin hopes that the influx of workers from India will help offset the shortage of labor in the Federation. Staffing shortages are far from the only problem facing the Russian economy. The topic will be continued by Andriy Dmitrenko.
The combined deficit of regional budgets in Russia for the first 9 months of 2025 amounted to nearly 170 billion rubles, according to an analysis by the expert RA rating agency. This concerns 56 subjects of the Federation. Thus, by the end of the year, the deficit for more than half of Russia's regions may reach 800 billion rubles, calculated the Center for Macroeconomic Analysis and Short-Term Forecasting.
The largest deficit in absolute terms was recorded in Kemerovo, 43.9 billion rubles, and Irkutsk, 41.1 billion regions, as well as in Yamalo-Nenets, Autonomous Okrug, 38 billion. In addition, high indicators are noted in Tyumen, Novosibirsk, and Nizhny Novgorod regions from a publication in the Moscow Times.
The aggressor country will end 2025 with a record hole in the federal budget. Initially, the deficit was planned at 1.2 trillion rubles, but by year's end, the authorities are preparing for a five-fold increase. There are many reasons for such a failure. The main ones are the growth of expenses for continuing Russia's war against Ukraine, restrictions on budget-forming sectors of the Russian economy, and Ukraine's defense forces' long-range sanctions, effective strikes on Russian oil refineries. The Kremlin has decided to try to plug the gap by raising taxes and fees. On November 10th, the State Duma passed a law increasing the corporate income tax from 20 to 22%. The document also increases the number of entrepreneurs required to pay it. This way, the government hopes to get an additional trillion rubles into the treasury in 2026. For Russians, this means that prices for food and consumer goods will soar starting January 1st.
From January 1st of the following year, prices for goods and services of a significant segment of small business will probably increase, but not all at once, by an amount close to 20% gradually. This won't be everywhere, not for everything, but it will happen. There's a domino effect. Businesses not subject to the new rule, but buying raw materials or services from those who will pay VAT will also face rising costs. Oleg Abelev, head of the analytical department at investment company Recom Trust, in a comment to Russian media.
Another method the Russian authorities are resorting to is launching the printing press. Since the beginning of 2025, the Russian Ministry of Finance has issued federal loan bonds worth about 4.5 trillion rubles. All this additionally fuels inflation, economists explain.
This is already heavy artillery. It's a very harsh inflationary monetary signal that military expenses are being financed on full throttle by the printing press, and when this dam breaks and these funds pour out onto the consumer market, causing a price surge, it's only a matter of time.
While the Russian authorities throw all resources into the military-industrial complex and army, production in civilian sectors of the economy is sagging. In 2025, a decline in production volumes was recorded in 70% of the main types of economic activity, reported Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service. The so-called war tax affects everyone, specialists assert.
On one hand, the purchasing power of certain people is growing, but on the other hand, the inflationary tax on the general population not connected to the military sector continues to increase. And one of the problems that may arise in Russia is the need to control consumer sentiments when people see in stores that the 15% inflation they published at record peak moments doesn't match reality at all, and their purchasing power is actually declining.
Russia's labor shortage in the coming years could reach 3 to 5 million people, admitted Sberbank head German Gref. Putin prefers to send Russians to die on the front, and to fill the labor gap, migrant workers are imported from North Korea and India. Indian General Consul in St. Petersburg, Neelam Rani, stated that labor emigration to Russia has sharply increased in 2025. Moscow plans to attract another 400,000 Indian workers to partially cover the labor market shortage. Reported by Andriy Dimitrenko, UATV News.
What's your take on all this? Share your thoughts below. This is UATV. Stay sharp, in focus, and stay safe.